Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. Today on SuperNatural Journey Show, we are going to have our special guest from United States. His name is Donald Arteaga. He is addicted to personal development and he will be our special guest today. While he's reaching us on a camera, I would like to thank you, everybody, for your time watching this show today. And please drop in as a comment where you're tuning from and your questions, please. So, the subject that we would love to cover today is judging detox. Um, Actually, beg your pardon, it's labeling paradox. Hello, Donald.
Hello, can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you. When
Perfect.
when I look at you, I have a feeling of Tony Robbins.
Yes, I bet.
Do you have his
Familiar with
flavor?
him?
Do you have his flavor into um, your energy?
I definitely guess you can say that in many respects, yes. I mean, I'm a big fan of his work, I'm a big fan of his events, and perhaps I may bring the energy from some of his events. I won't say I'm all over,
Yeah,
but I definitely have an energy though that's brought from there, definitely, because he's one of my, I consider him one of my mentors. So,
just the flavor. Yeah. So thank you very much for accepting my invite. And I would like
thank you for having me.
I kind of avoided your introduction, so I would like you to tell us a little bit of who is Donald.
Sure. Sure. So my name is Donald Arteaga. I am from the United States, Chicago, Illinois specifically. I am 26 years old, and this past year I've been on this mission, this journey to transcend labels. Uh, Giving some more context, pretty much my journey more or less started around middle school. In this case, like around grade 7, when I was diagnosed with autism. And for additional context on that, that is considered a neurobiological disorder that limits social skills, interactions, etc. But here's the thing, though, is that back in seventh grade when I was diagnosed, I was often told about what I couldn't do with my life versus what I could do. I was
Mm,
often reminded about all the limitations I was having in my life versus my strengths and my gifts. And the downside is while I was diagnosed, it also kind of had the flip effect too, where now people were seeing me through the lens and through the eyes of what they knew autism was. And seeing me as in like, oh, he has autism, he may struggle with social skills. It's like not always true. Autism is a very broad and wide spectrum. But pretty much my mission started there because at first when I was diagnosed, I accepted I accepted the label because it gave me an understanding to who I was. Have you ever done a personality test where you take it and you're like, oh, that is so me? It was almost the same thing with me and the diagnosis of autism. I'm like, oh, this fits a lot of who I am. But then over time, when I like went to even like high school, college time, that's where I started to be like, well, things don't really make sense. Things are not aligning as much as they did before with the definition. And and in many cases I would consider myself evolving from that area. I struggled with social skills, but I also worked on those and I decided to learn how to be more social, how to communicate effectively. I was, offered special accommodations in school, and each time I'm like, no, because I almost tried to do the opposite of what everyone wanted me to do. So now with my mission to transcend labels currently, it is not necessarily about saying that it's not about saying how do I put it? It's not about limiting, but it's about remember to focus with individuals, labels or not, diagnosis or not, because in our life we give labels to everything. So we give labels to this is water. What is what? We drink water. It hydrates us. This is a book. This is used for reading. This is used for writing, etc. So when I talk about the labeling paradox, I want to also clarify too that labels are not intrinsically bad. I'm not saying get rid of labels. I'm not saying get rid of them altogether, because if we have no labels, we have no understanding of our world. We need to understand, like, a label, like that this is a book. This is what a book is used for. This is a smoothie. This is used for drinking. We need labels to understand things, but, and there's a big but there, is that it can also, while it helps us understand things, it also limits our understanding of things in addition. It helps us understand, but it also doesn't help us understand. So when I was seen through the lens from everyone that I was diagnosed with autism, people saw me through a limited scope of perception of who I was and what my limitations would be. So that's where I want to be able to, with my mission to transcend labels, to break that and to break that expectation of, well, wait, this is not, I never would have guessed you have autism is a common thing that I hear. And it's honestly, yeah, I agree with that, because I feel as we as a society focus so much on the problems of things, focusing on what's wrong with things versus on what's right, and working towards solutions for the problems. So with transcending labels, I am focused on the paradox that happens when we label things. I'm not focused on saying to get rid of the labels. I'm saying, though, why don't we have some more empowering labels? Have more empowering things that keep us proactive, that has us keep moving forward, versus saying, well, this is who you are, and this is how you are going to be for the rest of your life, and this is how you're going to struggle. No, let's focus on the positives. I'm not about positive thinking, but I am focused, though, on solutions versus the problems. Ooh, I kind of went in the flow there when I was talking.
Yeah,
Thank you for letting
totally.
me talk.
Totally, yeah. I appreciate, like, basically labeling, you can put a label on a thing, on a product, but you don't have to
Mhm,
put a label on a being, or
mhm.
you can put a label on an animal, right? Labeling,
Yeah.
I can classify it as judgment, right? So when you're labeling a person, is you consciously or even unconsciously you judge that behavior, or that maybe personal individual problem that a person going through, and you squeeze it and you help that person become worse, instead of
Yeah.
coming coming as a mediator and help the person, make them understand that is more than just a disease that is maybe temporary, right? Okay, so
Yes.
when started this transition? I mean, yeah, it started on seventh grade, but when you have really discovered a sense and an authority of empowerment from your side, it was one of your
Yeah.
mentors or one of your friends, your parents. What was the moment when totally you activated your willpower into like an electric vehicle speed?
I love that analogy, let me just say. At that speed. But for me, it was within the past year. So I've only been doing this mission for about a year,
Mm,
but it's when I've felt it so much at the, like, it's funny, over time as I've continued to promote this mission, like, there are little tidbits here and there that continue to, like, drive me and continue to pull into me, where I'm like, this is really important, more than I was at the beginning. At the beginning, I was pursuing entrepreneurship, and I'm going to be completely honest and transparent, is at the beginning I was like, I'm going to pursue entrepreneurship, I'm going to have something to go towards. But the more I continue to go toward this, the more that inspiration has actually come to me. It's funny because sometimes they say, well, wait for inspiration, but I'm like, no, as I'm doing it, suddenly all these things come in of
mm,
inspiration, where I'm like, this is something, yeah, that I'm meant to do. This is something that is meant for me, and this is something that people need to hear, in my opinion, is so important. And similar to what you were saying in the past, what you were just saying before, is a lot of the times this is done unconsciously with labeling. It's not like my it's not like my mother, or it's not like my loved ones wanted to treat me differently, but through their fear and their concerns, they just saw me through a description of, this is what autism is, this is what all the struggles are that this person's going to have. So, and that's what drives me. What drives me though is to encourage, whether it's family, whether it's other parents of individuals on the spectrum, or it's not even just autism. For me, this is like for all encompassing.
Mm.
I mean, diagnoses are one thing, but sometimes even we as individuals label ourselves. And what I mean by that is, an example is, for a long time, I used to say, I am an introvert. But what I realized at some point was that saying that was actually more of an excuse versus me actually stepping outside my comfort zone of introversion. So I used to say I'm an introvert, but that was more of an excuse of I am an introvert, therefore I have no reason to do public speaking. Or it was more an excuse versus an explanation. I mean, I consider myself introverted, but am I going to say I am an introvert? Not necessarily, because I do have many points in my life where I'm like, whoa, this is completely outside of this introverted paradigm that I've told myself I have. That we're more capable than the limits that we set for ourselves.
Yes, totally. So, um, as a fact, first of all, hurt people, right? So it's like
Yes,
we have
very
been
much.
hurt unconsciously by the prior generation, and we ingrained it into our body, and we behave and act as um, uh, as well onto others, right? What we see. And
Mhm.
obviously, I truly believe that public speaking is the number one, the greatest skill for a human being, because it's the most scariest for all of us, right? And I
Mhm.
remember 1 year ago, before doing a live, I was shaking. I was like, my body was really like that fight and flight spirit, you know.
Yeah.
And so many times I said, I'm gonna do it later. I'm gonna do it tomorrow. And when fear is within, it's not possible. And again, your story,
Very
imagine
much.
that maybe are hundreds of millions of people, and actually we are 7.9 billion nearly. Your story can inspire and change your life. And this is about this show that I'm trying to do, just to express into existence the stories of people that they have overcome anything basically, and they become powerful and confident. How important is the confidence for a being that want to achieve greatness, and where you can buy some confidence,
I'm sorry, what was the last part?
where you can buy some confidence, where for example you buy or you take your confidence.
And that's a good question. And I will completely admit, I'm not here to say I'm perfect or that I
Mm.
am always 100% confident. Like, even stepping into live, sometimes there's like an initial hesitation at the beginning where it's like this, like, the fear, but then it's like you do it anyways, instead of just like, like being with the fear, dancing with it. But for confidence, though, I think it's very important. And one thing is, again, I'm still even developing this myself, is that there are areas where I am so fully confident, and then there are areas where I am like, okay, this is a room for improvement. But I think it's very important for us because when we are confident, we are able to do things with ease. We don't hesitate. We aren't fearful. We don't overanalyze. And I'm saying this from my own personal experience. I'm not just saying this out there. I'm saying this from my own experiences that confidence is very crucial and very important.
Yes, totally. We look different, but we are also the same, right? We have the same
Yes,
physiology. We
we all
have,
have fears.
yes, we all have the same internal functioning of the body. However, um, I think the environment create what we are, right? And
Hmm.
this is going to become probably a universal law. The five most closest people is that who you become, right? So you were saying before that more you go into your journey, more you feel inspired. Actually, for me, the word inspired means in spirit, right? So that means
Yeah,
you are in the flow with the spirit, and when you are inspired, you are one with your spirit. So then inspiration
yeah,
comes within, and you become creative, you become inspirational, and you can transcend into whatever you are designed to be and become, and to inspire the whole world, right? Look about Tony Robbins.
Yes.
When he started, for sure, there were so many few believers, right? Do you know his
Mhm.
story, right? But
Yes, very
yeah,
much.
but he has 40 years into doing the same things over and over again, right? Is the power of
Mhm.
repetition. So I know
Yes.
that you will be going in few days to one of his um, massive courses. It's My Destiny.
Date with Destiny. Yes.
There's
Six
what
full
it,
days.
6 full days. So you're gonna be most of the time with how many people?
This event's actually one of his more smaller events. I don't know offhand. I think I've heard 5 or 6 thousand, but I could be incorrect there. I just know, like, on average, the events I've like, just for even further context for anyone watching, I do volunteer at his events quite a bit. Usually the events that I do volunteer at are like around 11 to 12,000, but like this one's a much smaller event, and this one's going to be around, yeah, it's my first time going 6 days, 12-hour days, but I'm ready to immerse myself to continue my own personal growth because I believe the better I can be for myself, the better I can be for others.
Yes, totally. I have never had the chance yet to be to one of his events, but for sure is on my to-do list
Mhm.
because we know he's one of the most providential, the most well-known name in the world of personal development. My daughter,
Yes.
she's trying my shirts, and and she's Teddy. Look, okay. So, what are three things that you have learned from your parents, going back into your childhood?
Sure. Definitely the three, I guess I could say one of the biggest ones, and I don't want to get, of course, too personal with my parents and whatnot, but one great thing that I definitely learned from them is just being more compassionate, being more understanding of people, and even understanding that we're all emotional beings, like, and I mean, one thing I could definitely say was the biggest for me was compassion and being able to relate to someone, being able to be with someone on their level. And that's something I honestly give a lot of credit to my mother for. um, One other thing I learned from my family, I would just say with I guess you could even say with my, that's a good question, it's one I haven't thought about before, but definitely one is compassion. Another one is, like, I've learned both the good and the bad. Like, I've learned some things from my parents where it's like I add that into my own life right now, and there are parts where it's like I know I don't want to do that for my future, kind of thing. So I've learned kind of on the both sides there in regards to different areas. But that's the only one I can think of at the top of my head. But yeah, I'm not 100% sure on that one.
Okay, that's great. Is going to come. Um, what about
Mhm.
your? What do you do now? What do you do as a job, as a living, right now?
Okay. Currently, for me, for additional context, I used to work in a corporate job about 2 years ago. I recently left that about a half a year ago. Now I'm just pursuing some little ventures here and there. I do have some plans for some projects in the future. Actually, there's a matter of fact, there is one I am currently working on. I'm not ready to announce it all as of yet, but I do have some things though in the I forgot the term, but there are some things though in progress right now. Some of them, for example, in the past, I did a 7 day challenge for helping people lower their stress levels. But I still got some other focuses, but I don't have a concrete as of right now. So currently, what I'm doing is definitely promoting the mission, definitely promoting awareness. But in regards to the products and services that I'm going to be offering very soon, that is still a work in progress, but I am actively working on those.
Yeah, exactly 6 months. I have 6 months and 1 week since I have been working myself, and always
Nice.
been pursuing this opportunity to invest into my personal development. And it's amazing.
Mhm.
I would never go back to a job um, just over broke to go
Mhm.
and work for somebody else's dream, you know? But
Mhm.
yeah, we don't know what our future reserve. So um, going ahead, let's say 3 years from now on, what is that you would like to achieve? this is just a sort of accountability
Mhm.
test for you.
Oh, sure. 3 years from now. 3 years from now, I definitely am visualizing you in public speaking, and
Mm.
because that's something I've been looking to work on, and I admit though I have procrastinated on that. I do public speaking on like lives, but in person on a stage, I have not done that yet. So 3 years from now, I would definitely say public speaking, being on a stage, being able to present my mission to a bigger audience than I do as of right now. Oop, let me get the lighting back on. Presenting it to a bigger audience than I have as of right now. My goal actually for at the beginning of September 1st of 2019, my goal is to have reached 1,000 families on the spectrum, on the autism, depression, anxiety spectrum, that I'm able to reach them. But 3 years from now, I'd also like to be able to be traveling more. I definitely love to travel. That's one of my favorite things is to be able to have new experiences, see other areas of the world, but also be able to understand. Because with my mission to transcend labels, it's also about understanding. Also about understanding that while we can, put up labels on individuals, that we're still very much alike. That we are much more that we have much more in common than we like to believe about each other. Whether it's the political, whether it's uh, whether it's diagnoses, that we're all very much alike.
I
But that's
apologize.
pretty much for 3 years, though. I definitely have those focuses, and yeah, I don't have it offhand, but those like the main ones. Is I do want to be reaching a lot more people. I'm still dedicated to what I'm doing, and as well as being able to travel more, but also having products and services out there that are like my ideas. I don't want my ideas. Hello, you there?
Yes, I can hear now. Yes,
I, I apologize about that.
that's okay. So
Yeah, I don't want my,
you said that you don't want your ideas to?
oh, sorry. Yeah, so I don't want my ideas, like I could say all these ideas all I want. But the thing is they're abstract, they can be more complex, but I want to be able to put it into tangible products and services though that can provide for people on a level where I'm not just talking philosophically. I'm actually talking about something that can practically be applied into an individual's life. That's my focus though for 3 years from now, that I have products, that I have services, and that I'm able to continue promoting that message with stuff and tools that people can actually use and not just think about, you know?
Yes, yeah, yeah. Going to the start of the answer of this question, I think you're doing great on public speaking, like body language and expression. You're doing great. So,
Thank you.
what you do on a camera is roughly going to be on a stage. However, there you
Yeah.
will have a lot more energy because you
Yeah.
receive the energy from 5, 10, 50, or 100 people that you have there. So,
Mhm.
yes, well, I think it's all about the knowing thyself and therefore relationship for you, how important is um, because you had and you healed the relationship between you and your label. But how important
Could you say that
is,
one more time?
yes, I'm saying that, how important is for you relationship? Because you have healed a relationship between you and your label, but what about between you and other people?
Um, well, and I guess for context, when you say relationship, you mean just with people in general?
Yeah, people in general have to build relationships because we are um,
Oh, mhm.
the first grade of happiness. We receive it from the relationship we have with people around us.
Yes. Yeah. And um, at least with relationships, I mean, because as I was saying before, the better I am for myself, the better I can be for others. One of my focuses developing relationships with people is understanding and being able to, again, meet them where they are at, because not everyone, and I'm sure maybe you can vouch for this too, is that not as many people may work on themselves as much as maybe you or I are doing in our lives. But one thing that's helped me do just in regards to working on myself is to to meet people at where they're at and to be able to talk with them, be able to understand that they may have different beliefs or different values about the world, excuse me, and that they have a different view of life. Like someone might view me in a different way than another person. I love to say that if you think of it this way, no one sees each other 100% exactly like we see ourselves. Like that's what I find so exciting is that none of us see each other exactly the same. We all are seeing each other through a filter of each individual person. Just as you are for me, it's not going to be exactly what I see of myself. So I think that's a great thing about with relationships though, is that trying to be able to understand someone's point of view, understanding their perspective and their beliefs and their values, because it's never going to be exactly the same as yours. But with that understanding comes the connection that it's like, oh, I can relate to that. I understand why they feel that way, and I would feel the same way in the same position. And that's how you can build the effective relationship with people and continuing to move forward.
Yes, yeah. Well, it's a time that we live nowadays. I think is the greatest ever the human history that we know, and the other five civilization that we have been through. And I think this is number one. And um, most of us we are badly programmed by the society, which is very harmful for us, and we don't live the life that we designed to be happy and to be
Mm-hmm.
creative. And for sure in the next year comings, everything will be like a shift, and we'll be able to create more and more other important skills for us to uh,
Oh, sorry.
be better. Okay, so how important is to have a product, right? You said that you are working on to building a product, and I think I'm
Yes.
kind of sharing roughly the same story as you. Again, I'm looking to build a product so I
Mm-hmm.
can make a living, because I do the
Mm-hmm.
shows, but these shows there is no money in. It's just
Mm-hmm.
for growing myself. So how important is to have, and how easy is to create a product online?
I mean, from what I'm seeing and from what I'm hearing, and again, I'm still at the very beginning stages, so I just want to put a disclaimer there that I'm still learning and I'm not even there yet. But from what I'm hearing, it's very simple, very easy. But like I said, I've been looking to do this for like a month or so, and I'm still figuring it out. And sometimes I think what people get caught in, including myself, is the stuck in the ideas phase of here's an idea, but then how do you do it? And I'm actually reading this book. I forgot what it was called because every leader has their way of doing it. Everyone says this is the way to do it. This is the steps to do it. But the one that I'm currently reading, again, I don't remember the name, but they're mentioning though about just simply getting specific with what you want to do in regard to a product or service, being very, very specific. Because there initially used to be a fear in my head of, well, it's only going to pertain to a small amount of people, but it's like, at least it's going to pertain to people. If it's something so general, then how do people know it's effective if it's just so vague? If it's a vague product or vague service, why would people want to invest in something where they don't even understand it themselves? So I'm learning, at least from what I'm reading and from what I'm researching, is simplicity. So again, I'm in the same boat as you here. So I don't want to, for anyone watching as well too, I don't want to say that I have these answers because I will say a year from now, I will have those answers from what has worked for me, for
Yeah,
sure.
that's great. And what I have understand during the time that I'm having the shows is that I have loads of inspiration, and I learn a lot even while we just speaking. The mind has this powerful
Yeah.
creation within, and these neurons, when they scatter two, three, five words combination, you just can, wow, this is it. Yes, this was the thing that I was searching. I become inspired in the moment now. So,
Yes.
what is your relationship with past, future, present?
What do you mean by that?
Mean like, what is, do you ever leave your past? Uh, do you feel a deeper connection with your future? Um, how is the way that you
Oh,
live your every moment?
sure. One thing that I love to say, and I continue to say it, I said it the day I started pursuing the entrepreneurship journey, was do something today your future self will thank you for. So I definitely could say I have a definitely relationship with my past and future and present. One thing is I am very grateful for how far I've come. And one thing that I actually do is I do practice gratitude every day. I think of things that I'm grateful for. I remember how far I've come from literally a year ago or even from like a day ago. And my focus though, so I definitely have a great relationship. So like with the past, I love to think about things I'm grateful for. For example, even I love to, and this may be kind of a little bit like sounds silly here, but I do like to remember, or even think of like my young baby self and being able to communicate and say, like I did good and I'm doing great things and that you will too. And again, this is something that's more my own thing. I'm not saying it like in a literal sense. I'm just saying though that I definitely can think of my past and wish or maybe believe that I'm saying I'm doing good and you're gonna, I think of my teenage self in high school who was depressed, who was overweight. I mean, I went up to like around 230 pounds. I'm like 80 pounds down since then. But being able to tell that individual and say like, you're gonna go far and this is just the beginning. Like this is maybe a time where you don't understand what I'm telling you right now, but it'll make a lot more sense in a few years. Or with my future, with that quote, do something today your future self will thank you for. That's what drives me every day is to remember that this is for my future. And while some of the stuff right now I don't fully see for myself for the future, it's like though my future is gonna thank me for it. Or my future self a year from now is gonna be like, thank you, Donald, presently because you did what you did today. And that's the same idea is that's the same idea with focusing on that every day is to remember like say like if you're working out, say for example if you're going to lose a significant amount of weight, it's not right now in the present where you're like, oh, I'm losing the weight now, but it's something for the future. You are thinking about your future self who has lost all the weight, who is very fit, who is very happy, very active, and that's kind of the same idea. So I'm saying it like in a practical way with someone like wanting to lose weight or someone who commits to something for the long term. That's the same thing with me here with the pursuit of this entrepreneurship. Is that some of it I'm still learning, some of it I'm still kind of like, well, where do I go from here? But also it's a journey, and I love the idea of trusting the journey, trusting the process, because part of it is I've learned so much in the past year and I am glad that my past self in January decided that they were gonna do this journey because I've learned so much about myself, and when it reaches December 31st, I'm gonna be that future self I was that said this. It sounds a little bit like out there, but I'm not saying in a literal sense. I'm saying it though as in like my imagination and what drives me.
Yes. For example, myself, I, for me, there is no past, no future.
Hmm.
It's both of them is a present moment. Basically,
Hmm.
this moment in 5 minutes will become past, but is a present
Yes.
now, right? And
Hmm.
after 5 minutes, we're having the future, but it's
Yeah.
going to be this moment in 5 minutes. So
Hmm.
for me is um, I create the intention to be happy every day,
Hmm.
and I am aware, and I try always to be as maximum aware about this moment because this moment creates the next one. And if I
Hmm.
choose to be happy now, the next moment will become naturally and simply um, pure happiness. So this is the way that I pull myself forward. I have never been all the time like that. It's just in the last probably 1 year and a half, 2 years nearly, since I got into the personal development and growing and doing loads of research, reading loads of books, and so on. So therefore, I'm so grateful. Yes, gratitude, as you said, it's fundamental because it's
Yeah.
thinking to something that you don't have, right? So
Mhm.
that's you creating, you're attracting that emotion, that feeling that is going
Yeah.
to come to you. Um, and I have read somewhere, and I think it's true, that gratitude it's the most powerful drug, and it's cheap,
Yeah.
and it's
Yeah.
cheap. It's free actually.
And you create it.
Like
You create it yourself.
we are able to create it, right? But how many
Mhm.
people think that happiness is into buying the car, buying the house, buying
Yes, exactly.
that nice purse, or attachment is one of my no way. One of my rules is have an open mind to everything and be attached to nothing. So
Oh, I love that. I love that.
nothingness, yeah, it comes from Dr. Wayne Deere. Over there, I read it for the
Oh,
first time.
nice. Yeah, I know.
So
I've
yeah,
heard. I know.
yeah,
And I'm a big fan of gratitude as well. I
yeah,
I love gratitude, and yeah, it's the easiest. You can even say easiest drug to use, and what it really helps with, at least from my experience too, is that in the times of self-doubt, you start going into gratitude, and suddenly you're just your whole the paradigm of your perception is like suddenly goes into grateful mode. Where I love what Tony Robbins says, because he's a big guy into gratitude, is that you can't be angry and fearful simultaneously. They don't work. So if you're in a fearful state, start practicing gratitude, because they're gonna conflict, and gratitude is gonna win over, because love is the answer. Love and understanding, and like being grateful that you have things that other people may not even have, or that you didn't have a year ago. It makes you feel so fulfilled, like inside. You feel so filled, and I've done that. I've done that before in times where I am feeling down. I'm feeling self-doubtful, and then gratitude suddenly turns that energy suddenly into, I'm gonna be perfectly okay. There's nothing to worry about. And you're like just in like almost like a blissful state. And I am a big advocate for promoting it to people, because I don't know many people who are familiar with this concept of practicing gratitude. And I think it's going to benefit a lot of people, just being aware of this idea of what is practicing gratitude, focusing and making an active focus on what you have versus what you don't have. Remembering that what you have right now, a majority of people in the world, I mean, even outside this country, may not even have the privilege to have, whether it's running water, whether it's a room and board. That I know I have a lot of things that I take for granted, but that someone else somewhere else would be like, would jump right on it. So that's where I'm saying it's so important. Remember that there are people in the world though who don't have any of the luxuries that I have, that don't even have this smartphone that I have, or that even have a room and board. And during this freezing cold time in the snow, I'm grateful for what I have, but I also believe that for much that I have, much is going to be expected from me to give back, and that much that I expect of myself to give back to people, because I have these privileges. Whew, I went into the
yes,
new
yeah.
state there.
You're doing great. You're doing great.
Thank
Again,
you.
Tony Robbins, and
I'll
and
help you get to an event at some point.
well, yeah, yeah. Well, I am in love with events. I love events. But the last period of my transition is like, money are less and less. So therefore,
Mhm,
affordability right now, not really. I
mhm.
too have two little
Yeah,
monkeys that I have to look after. So they need
yeah,
my presence, even if I have the money. Yeah, well, if I have the money, I just pay a babysitter and sort it out, right? It's easy. But
yeah.
yeah, at the end, money is the issue. As for most
Mhm.
of us, yes, I think
Yes,
92% of the people, they don't have the fundamentals, the
yeah,
necessities to survive. Um, well, not to survive, no, to live a decent life. Only 8% of people
yeah.
on Earth,
Just the
and
basic necessities.
but
Yeah.
even America, I think you are over there. Over ten
Mhm.
percent of people live in extreme poverty. If you
Yeah.
go into details,
It's
right? It's
Yeah, I mean, it's not even just outside the country. It's like even in here, there's many people that don't have the things that I have as well either. And that's where I feel a big responsibility there to be able to help because, like I said, like sometimes I take little things for granted. And I'm not going to lie and say, like, oh, well, everything I'm so aware that I have and I'm grateful for. There are moments, I am in a moment where I am angry, but then it's like, well, wait, no, like this, I have so much. To go to a scarcity mindset and then go into gratitude, it's like, well, wait, no, I have plenty. There are people who don't have anything, and if anything, I should be considering them even more to make sure that we all come up together versus, well, you're down there, I'm up there, you're this person and you're that person, you're higher, you're lower. It's like, no, but saying like we're all human beings and to go up together, as I guess we could say, collectively, I guess you could say.
yeah, I think it's gonna take another five years plus to uh, be be more awareness among us, so we are able to not leave not even one human being behind, to not be having an environment where they can not only survive but even to thrive. Because imagine, for example, let's take the proposition that we live into this scarcity of millions of people that they died because of hunger in Africa, in India, or any other
Hmm.
countries, and over there maybe are 5 or 10 Elon Musks, right?
Hmm.
Us overall we're losing, right? But I do not know. I don't understand how politicians think, and those that really have financial stability and power
Hmm.
to really change things in the world. Because at the end, it's all about the
Hmm.
money. I think you can change a lot with the money. All you need is money and a bit of willingness.
Hmm. Yeah, and it's interesting there too, and that's why I want to promote gratitude so much is that I feel like that there are even some people, and I'm saying this even from my own life. I wasn't practicing gratitude when I was, from birth, but like when I heard these ideas, and for me, it's about ideas. It's about planting seeds in
Mm.
individuals' minds about, well, wait. I mean, that's what even when I attended Tony Robbins' event was like, whereas like the seed planted of like, wait, no, I'm more capable of doing stuff. Or this idea of gratitude being like, well, wait, do I actually have more than enough in my current life right now, even though I'm feeling differently? And it's to be able to think logically and be like, well, wait, I have a lot and I have enough, and that I can, and even getting out of that emotional strain, that emotional downfall, or that emotional place that you're in, to pick yourself back up. And that's why I even encourage people, not just gratitude, but just educating oneself, continuing the education. Not just, it doesn't have to even just be personal development, but just continuing, so we have more ideas planted in our minds. And then when we create something, it's like, well, wait, this comes from this area, this comes from that area, some of it's coming from a lot of this area, and that we're well rounded as well too. Because I excuse me, yeah, let's look there. But that I don't know if I'm going to learn everything that there is to know in my lifetime. I don't believe so personally, but that I, that's what makes life for me worth living too, is that I can continue to learn and, excuse me, not know completely everything. But that's what's exciting to me, is that I'll never know everything, but I can continue to build and expand myself until I breathe my last breath. Drink some water there.
Yes. I can feel you. Unfortunately, the educational system um, teach us to learn mechanically and to stop us when we are 18 or when we are 22, right? And then you stop learning, and you think you got it, but then real life starts to be a
Yeah.
badass, because you are responsible to pay all the bills. And if you start a family, it's even more difficult, because you will never be able to get out from the matrix. And what you just
Mhm.
said earlier, what is important is to be aware about the
Mhm.
relationship between the higher self, the spirit, and the
Mhm.
ego, right? Because that's
Yes.
why I think all of us, we embrace the ego and
Hmm.
we keep on aside the spirit, and that's why we're not able to discover ourselves, and we just live um, a illusion of one reality. And
Hmm.
yeah, so what is your definition of greatness?
Greatness. Oh wow, loaded question. No, I was kidding. For me, greatness is being one's best self. I mean, whether however that's considered, higher self, greater self, like just greatness for me is greatness for me is just doing something out of the ordinary, doing something that defies the odds, doing and whether it's with a person or just another person or seeing another person do it, greatness is doing something that is alive and liberating, but maybe that can also help other people. Like when you say greatness, I have so many ideas floating in my mind right now. But greatness for me is fulfillment, uh, purpose and meaning in one's life. Greatness for me is yeah, less suffering, far less suffering. Like I would say no suffering. In an ideal world, no suffering, or or at least minimizing the suffering to the extent that we receive their suffering, but that we continue to alleviate it and we continue to work toward lessening that suffering. Greatness for me is those athletes who influence other people to show what's possible from their own example of like stretching past the physical limits that we think people can do. And then they're in the Olympics and we're like, whoa, how did they do that? That to me is greatness. There's many, and I can go on and on about what greatness is, but those are just little things floating in my mind as of right now on that. What do you think, in my opinion, of what greatness is?
Greatness, yeah, greatness is a, a collective of the whole consciousness of
Mhm.
humanity, and you are promoting it to make it greater, bigger. So,
Nice.
and it's everything. It's an expansion of of the invisible that we can't see. You know, all this space between you and me, there is space, right? But some words are no form. They are waves, right? So in all this void, in all this space, and we are there is space, universe, galaxies, there is infinite, right? And all this space
Mhm.
is information. And we are very a primitive civilization. We don't know how to tap in and really decode and understand to read this information. Probably in 1,000 years, we'll be able to do it. But there are many people that already did it, right? Einstein, Nikola Tesla, or there are
Yeah.
so many documentaries over there where you can see that some people they really tap in, but it's all about
Yeah.
greatness and to keep doing it, and so on. Okay, before I ask you my last question, do you have any question for
Okay.
me?
Um, Not at the top of my head, but I'm really enjoying. Let me just say, I'm really enjoying this as well too. I'm having a lot of
Yeah,
fun with this.
yeah,
I don't
yeah,
do as many collabs, but I'm probably planning on doing a lot more in the future for
yeah.
sure.
It's amazing, you know, because when you're discussing with somebody and you don't really follow a script, right? Just some mechanical
Mhm.
questions. You just go to the
Yeah.
flow to actually understand the journey of the other person, but at the same time, how to challenge the other person with an interesting question that again
Yeah.
is to open up more and more. Um, Um, what do you think is best, to speak from the head or to speak from the heart?
Oh, definitely from the heart, 100%. I think more often than not, though, majority of people, I mean, I'm guilty of it many times, speaking from the head, from the ego. And I think the heart, though, definitely, though, because that's where there's not all this fear, this worry, this anxiousness. Speaking from the heart is in the core, is what's real versus the head where I love this idea. I forgot who said it, but I love this realization though that these thoughts that I have are not my own, or that the words that I talk about, these ideas I speak about are not my own. They are just ones that have been passed on, and I've either agreed with them and sharing what I've heard from other people,
Mm,
or they're just, or I forgot how you say it though. Like, for example, if you believe in something, that is not necessarily something that you had right when you were born, but it's you adapted it and into your life over time. And you're like, well, you said unconsciously or maybe registered subconsciously that you agreed with it, and now it's functioning for who you are as a person. It's not like your beliefs in whether it's Christianity, Judaism, it's not like from birth you were like thinking about these things. These thoughts were planted, and either you let them grow or let them sprout, or you just said, well, no, that's not true, that is BS. But yeah, long story short, I would say speak from the heart, because that's where you get rid of all that egoic stuff, where you get rid of all the, oh, well, this is me and this is who someone else is, oh, this is me and I'm different from that person. But speaking from the heart is like, no, you see that you feel a connectedness between people, everything is connected, oneness, however you want to call it. And that for me is more important. And I'm still working on it myself. There are times I'm still speaking from the head. So I would say heart, 100%.
yeah, I really love the way and this concept that the thoughts that we have, they are not our own thoughts, are thoughts from other people that we unconsciously integrated into our thinking, and we just carry them
Yeah.
around, right? And if you don't
Yeah.
have a group of people, of mentors that they really done loads of studies at their turn, so you
Mhm.
can put them all together to create your unicity into expressing yourself and communicating with others, then obviously um, you are a bit of dumb if you just take little and you're trying to be somebody with a little. Okay, so my last question for today. We see not too much traffic today. Usually there are more and more people, but probably now people they're working. Who knows?
Yeah.
So, Donald,
Nowadays.
my last question for today is: what is the impact that you want to have in the world?
Ah, good one. I like that. The impact for me is, and I love, excuse me, I don't know why. One thing, and I like to think of this question also in regards to, have you ever read Stephen Covey's Seven Habits?
Oh, I do have it right here. No, I have the
Oh,
third way. No, the third way, but I have the seven habits as well. But I don't have it in
sure.
English.
Yeah, the reason I mention it is because I think there's one of the habits is begin with the end in mind. And when you
Yes.
ask this question, I totally think of that is his question, like in other words, like what would you want people to say at your funeral? In other words, so for me, the impact I want to leave is I want to be remembered. If anything, I'll even say in regards to being the legacy I'm leaving. I want to be remembered for someone who did want what was best for people, I want to be remembered as someone that did search a lot and did educate himself on many different things, uh, and that he was also still in many cases humble because these ideas were not even his own. But I would the long term effect I want to leave too is that I could do what was best for myself and for other people, and that I made an impact in one form or another that future generations will be able to feel and will be able to understand. I mean, I think of individuals like Gandhi or Martin Luther King, and like that was decades and decades ago, and people still remember those ideas. The thing is, sometimes people forget that in this current political climate, sometimes of these ideas of, but they're still rippling, is what I'm saying, is that like I am still resonating with their ideas or their perspectives. Philosophy, I'm still rippling from those ideas. So I want to be able to be remembered that someone who wanted to carry on those ideas of whether it's love, understanding, and gratitude. I want to be able to be remembered for someone who was outside the social norm, but not to stand out, but just to say though that I dared to do something different, but that I also encouraged others to embrace a life filled with purpose and meaning, because that for me is the most liberating, is that when you have something to go towards and you have a lot of meaningful like leave my corporate job, like I had so much security there. Let me say as an example, I had plenty of money coming in, I had plenty of benefits coming in of like insurance, this and that. But even leaving that and sacrificing the little luxuries for what I have now, I wouldn't I wouldn't change that. I wouldn't go back there. I Even though I have insecurities in certain places now, I'm still living a life that's filled me up so much, and that I hope that with my legacy too, in the long term effect, that people see that money isn't everything. That it does provide the basic necessities, but that it also was not it's not the end goal. When you die, you don't take your money with you wherever we're going, and that there was more to life than material goods, and that that's not the only thing that can make you happy, but that long-term happiness is something that cannot always be held in your hand, and that I was able to promote those ideas to individuals, and to hopefully have people maybe see my social media stuff maybe a decade from now, or well, no, I mean, I'm saying after I'm gone, still be able to have these ideas and these thoughts and these know who I am after I'm long gone. Not to be like, oh, well, he's famous, but just to be like, well, these ideas were important and that we need to change things, or that it helped to influence someone to say, you know what? Yeah, the things that you're saying make sense. And maybe there's a bigger raise in consciousness like centuries from now where they're like, these ideas make so much sense. Let's bring these back. If it does go so far, of course. Yeah. that's
Yeah,
that's for me.
was a beautiful story with the impact. Yeah, so we do have a lot to
Yep.
create, and
Yes.
there was a survey that in order for us humanity to solve all the problems in the world, we need to quadruple the number of business people. But
Oh wow.
I do business. I love business. I'm passionate about business. I think I will become one of the greatest. You see that I have Elon Musk, right? And
Yeah.
the planet Mars, right?
Yeah.
So uh, I will create many businesses. However, people that they have never done business, when I go to them with a proposal of a business, they just get panic. And you know what they say?
Yeah.
They come up with the stories that I don't have time, I don't have money,
Mhm.
or they say they do it, but they don't do it. So what they do, they just come with miserable excuses. They let down themselves because they say they do it, and they let their higher self by not doing it, and they live
Mhm.
into that matrix, how I define it. Okay, Donald, was really great to chat with
Yeah.
you,
Thank you so much.
and
Thank you.
for sure we're gonna get back together again, and
Definitely.
let's create the world a better place for all of us.
I totally agree with that. Be the change you wish to see in the world. Set an
Totally.
example. Everyone has an opinion, but not everyone has the example. So let's continue setting that example.
Thank you very much. I appreciate it. It was an
Thank you
honor.
so much. All right.
Have
Have
all
a
the best.
fantastic rest of your day.
Thank you very much. You too.
All right.
Bless you.
Take
Bye
care.
bye.
Bye.
Bye bye, everybody. Thank you for tuning in. Supernatural Journey Show is off till Friday.